Have you ever listened back to a classic track and just thought, wow, what is that amazing sound? Sometimes, it's not just the guitar or the amp. It's one specific kind of iconic piece of gear that just defines everything. And today, that's exactly what we're diving into. The Electro-Harmonix Electric Mistress. It's a legendary guitar effect.
Right. And our mission here is pretty clear. We want to dig into where it came from, the tech behind it, which was really innovative for its time, and, the impact it had, the lasting impact. We're pulling all this from the source material provided, basically giving you the inside track on its place in music history.
Yeah, we're going to trace how this little box, well, not so little originally, took this really complex studio trick and, bang, put it right at a guitarist's feet, and how it ended up shaping the sound of some bands you definitely know. It's going to be a fascinating journey, really, into a sonic revolution. Okay, so let's unpack this. Picture it, mid-1970s. Guitarists are hearing these incredible, swirling, almost watery sounds on records flanding. But the thing was, you couldn't just, buy a pedal for that. It was purely a studio thing, right?
Yeah.
Done with tape machines.
Exactly. Reel-to-reel tape recorders, usually two of them, playing the same thing slightly out of sync, and an engineer manually manipulating the tape speed. Very tricky stuff. Then, boom, 1975. Electro-Harmonix drops the Electric Mistress.
And that was a big deal.
Huge deal, because it was the world's first flanger effect available in a stomp box. A pedal you could actually buy and use live. This was before pretty much any other compact modulation effects. I mean, chorus pedals, other flangers. It was genuinely historic.
So is David Cockrell the designer? He also did the Small Stone Phaser, the Deluxe Memory Man. Some serious classics there.
That's the guy, an absolute genius. He figured out how to take that complex studio process
He crammed it into a pedal.
Yeah.
How did he get that sound into a box?
Well, the key was using something called Bucket Brigade delay chips, BBDs. These chips basically allowed the circuit to create a very short, controllable delay, mimicking what the tape machines did. So guitarists could suddenly dial up those jet plane swooshes, those kind of metallic, shimmery sounds, even things that sounded a bit like chorus, right there on their pedal board. It was revolutionary, applying that BBD tech.
That is ingenious, taking a studio secret and just making it available. But okay, EBD chips, complex circuits, what did that actually mean for the player? What did it sound like, and how easy was it to control?
Right. So technically, you had this BBD chip creating a super short delay. We're talking like 0.1 to maybe 13 milliseconds, tiny delays. And then you had an LFO, a low-frequency oscillator modulating that delay time, sweeping it up and down. That sweep creates what's called comb filtering. Think of it like sound waves interfering with each other. Some peaks line up, some cancel out. That's what gives you that distinctive whooshing, swirling sound.
Gotcha. So that's the magic behind the swirl. And the controls. They look pretty simple on the original.
Yeah, surprisingly straightforward for the sounds it could make. You had rate, pretty obvious, that controlled how fast the LFO was sweeping, slow whoosh or fast wobble,
Okay.
then range. That set how wide the sweep was. So was it a subtle little movement or a really deep, dramatic dive?
Right. And the last one, color. That sounds intriguing.
Ah, color. That was the feedback control, sometimes called regeneration. It basically feeds some of the output signal back into the input. Dialing that up makes the effect much more intense, more resonant, more metallic. That's where you get those really pronounced, almost psychedelic flange tones.
So, rate, range, color. Simple, but powerful. What about its overall sound signature, then? How would you describe it?
It's known for this really dreamy but also quite metallic flanging sound. It's kind of unique 'cause it's in this interesting space, somewhere between a lush chorus and that really intense jet engine whoosh you can get.
Okay, so it has a definite character, but does that mean it's a one-trick pony? How versatile could it actually be?
Oh, surprisingly versatile. That's the thing. Keep the settings low, especially that color knob turned down, and it could be really subtle, almost like a warm, watery chorus, just adding a bit of movement.
But then you crank it.
Yeah, push that color knob up, widen the range, speed up the rate, and it just gets wild. Really extreme psychedelic textures become possible. Very experimental.
People often compare it to the MXR Flanger, which came out a bit later. How do they stack up?
Good question. The Mistress generally had a reputation for being, well, maybe a little noisier. You know, that analog hiss sometimes?
Sure, part of the vintage charm, some might say.
Exactly. But in return, it often felt like it had a wider sweep, maybe a bit more character, a more experimental edge compared to the often smoother MXR. Different flavors, really.
And this pedal, It wasn't just a flash in the pan. It actually changed over time, didn't it? It evolved.
It absolutely did, which is really interesting. So the timeline starts with the original Electric Mistress. That ran from about 1975 to 1978. That's the iconic big one, the EHX wedge shape, all analog, using those Redicon SAD 24 BBD chips and those early ones with the green graphics. Super collectible now.
Right, the big metal wedge. So they made this breakthrough, and then like any good company, they started thinking, how can we make this better? Or maybe just different?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Which leads us to the Deluxe Electric Mistress. Came out around 78, ran till about 82. This version brought some refinements. The controls were maybe a bit easier to dial in. The overall sound was perhaps a touch cleaner, a little more hi-fi maybe, but it still had that core analog magic.
And that deluxe version, that's kind of the one people think of, isn't it?
It really is. Probably the most popular and enduring version. Then, after a gap, EHX brought it back in the 90s and 2000s with reissues of the Deluxe. They updated some components for modern reliability, power jacks and things, but the goal was always to stay true to those classic original tones.
And the evolution didn't stop there, right? It kept going into more recent times.
Nope, it continued. In the 2000s and right up to today, you've got modern takes. There's the Neo Mistress, which is tiny part of their Nano series. Simplified controls, standard power jack, makes it super easy to fit on a modern board.
Hitting that classic sound in a smaller footprint makes sense.
Exactly. And then there's the Stereo Electric Mistress. That one's really cool because it actually combines chorus and flanger effects in one pedal. And crucially, it has stereo outputs, so you can get these huge, spacious sounds.
Wow, so quite a journey from that first big wedge. But okay, beyond the tech and the regions, let's talk impact. This thing ended up on some seriously famous records. You've almost certainly heard the Electric Mistress, even if you didn't know what it was at the time.
Oh, absolutely. Its user list is like a who's who. Probably the most famous user is David Gilmour from Pink Floyd. He used it heavily on albums like Animals back in '77 and The Wall in '79. And live, too. Think about the textures on tracks like Shine on You Crazy Diamond or the pulse in Run Like Hell. That's often the Mistress.
Ah, okay. That makes sense. That shimmering, swirling quality in his tone. But it wasn't just prog rock, right?
Not at all. Andy Summers of The Police is another huge one. A lot of that signature, clean, chorusy, shimmering guitar tone that defined The Police, the Electric Mistress played a massive part in that.
Right, that jangly, modulated sound.
Exactly. And then you've got Alex Lifeson from Rush. He used it quite a bit during their Hemispheres and Permanent Waves period, adding that layer of texture to their complex sound.
Okay, so prog, new wave. Any other big names? Maybe something heavier?
Definitely. Think about Jay Mashes from Dinosaur Jr. He's famous for pairing fuzz pedals with flange, and the Electric Mistress is often part of that equation. It helps shape those huge, swirling textures in alternative rock and shoegaze.
That's a great range of artists.
Yeah.
It really is worth going back and listening specifically for it on those tracks.
Yeah.
It kind of recontextualizes the songs once you know what's making that sound.
It really does. And when you pull back and look at the bigger picture, its place in music history is, well, it's undeniable.
Yeah, you really can't overstate the fact that it was the first commercially available flanger pedal. That alone is huge.
Yeah.
It democratized the sound.
Absolutely. It took an effect that was previously locked away in expensive studios and put it in the hands of any guitarist who could afford the pedal. And its influence on genres, it's profound. That lush, dreamy, sometimes metallic swirl became a key ingredient in late 70s progressive rock, definitely. But also think about new wave, post-punk. That shimmering, atmospheric quality it added became part of the sonic identity for so many bands in those scenes. It gave them a texture they just couldn't get otherwise.
It really did shape the sound of an era. And the fact that vintage originals are still so sought after today, fetching high prices, that tells you something about its lasting appeal.
It does, but what's also great is that you can still get that sound. The modern reissues, the nano version. Keep it accessible for new players discovering it today. It hasn't just become a museum piece.
True, it's still out there, still being used.
Yep.
So ultimately, the Deluxe Electric Mistress, it really stands as one of Electro-Harmonix's absolute classic modulation pedals.
Yeah.
Right up there with the MXR flanger in terms of iconic status. Its legacy is secure. So thinking back on this journey, it started as this incredible technical leap, bringing flanging out of the studio. And it ended up defining the sound for legendary artists in entire genres. The Electric Mistress really did bring that whoosh to the masses.
It really did. And maybe a final thought for you listening. Think about how one specific effect, just a particular combination of electronic components and controls can do more than just make a cool noise. It can actually shape musical movements, become part of the very fabric of iconic songs we all know. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other single pieces of technology, maybe not even in music, have had that kind of focused, lasting impact on an art form, fundamentally changing how people create? Something to ponder.